What's up guys, welcome back to this channel. My name is Dean, aka the Blue Crusader, and today we're going to be discussing the fall of H1Z1. Recently, the development team behind H1Z1 PC, now known as Z1 Battle Royale, announced that 3 days from making this video, on March the 6th, 2019, Season 3 will arrive with a huge update, promising to revive the game by bringing back the classic feel. This video is not meant to be hating on the game, as I do still play it myself, but rather outline every reason why it actually fell from its graces. Tomorrow, I'll release a video on it, whether the new update will revive the game or not. So without further ado, let's begin. So firstly, what caused H1Z1, perhaps the biggest giant in Battle Royale history before Fortnite, to fall from grace? First, a little background information. For those who haven't played H1Z1 or need a rejog of their memory, H1Z1 back in 2016 and early 2017 was the biggest Battle Royale game on Steam. You might have even seen some of the top streamers today, such as DrDisrespect, Summit and Ninja, actually play the game. Most of the most popular streamers to this day came from H1 or actually grew from H1Z1. Even Fortnite's Eryctriceps, who has recently found some success on Twitch, actually came from H1Z1 as the #1 ranked player for a few seasons. The game was huge and it had a unique feel to it that no other game could possibly even hope to beat, until one day things began to change, and that's where we get onto the fall of H1Z1. H1Z1 was not a perfect game by any means. In fact, most streamers and content makers were popular for being toxic or raging, basically because of the in-game bugs that either broke the game or made it harder, but this didn't stop people from playing, not yet at least. But let's look into the bugs first, shall we, because bugs and game-breaking features weren't really what made the game die, although it definitely put a few nails in the coffin of H1Z1. The first huge bug in the game was the shotgun. It's hard to say whether it was a bug or just poorly coded or designed, but the shotgun within the game never hit properly. It's like, unless your shotgun was literally down the enemy's throat, you weren't getting a kill, even in 2 or 3 shots. Most of the problems arise from the pellets hitting really awkward angles and not effectively hitting an enemy fully. These problems stayed in the game for a very long time before even being attempted to be fixed. Some of the fixes included implementing tighter scatter spread on all the pellets and adding a hit marker which shows which shots hit and where. However, after attempting to actually buff the shotgun, they buffed it way too much, making it into a mid-range sniper rifle like weapon that was simply way too powerful. They went from a really terrible weapon to a really overpowered one. Eventually it did get reverted and it still isn't perfect to this day. Shotguns are always hard to balance, but getting into a shotgun fight on H1Z1 always doesn't end well. The next huge bug, and one of the biggest that took many seasons to even get touched on and finally fixed, was ENAS. If you never played this game, odds are you got no clue what this even is. Basically, ENASing was when players abused the animation system in the game to rapidly run from right to left whilst moving their mouse to the same corresponding direction, causing rapid flinching movements on the player, making it literally impossible to hit them. Most of the issues in this game, and some we will cover after, are all due to the poor animation system in the game. Well, finally ENAS got fixed and people rejoiced, but it came later than necessary. There were other issues in terms of game mechanics and the actual engine itself. For an example, people would lose a lot of health from fall damage even when they weren't even falling from a high distance or a very high up place. This was because the fall damage in the game was originally based on player speed rather than the actual drop you took. So people who were moving fast forwards would take more damage than people dropping from high positions, usually depending on how fast the player was moving in a certain direction. This was fixed later, but it was in the game for way too long. So we covered a few of the major game breaking bugs that H1Z1 neglected for so long. Perhaps we'll take a look at the connection and server side of things. There were and are a multitude of server side problems on H1Z1, ranging from desync, rubber banding and general latency issues, but the latency issues are a problem in their own. Chinese players still frequently connect via VPNs with very high ping to servers such as North America and EU, and with a huge amounts of lag usually are almost unkillable due to the latency to other players in the game environment. Most efforts to ping lock servers have been circumvented and only cause further problems, such as locking people's weapons, making them unusable even if they get one lag spike, which could lose a crucial part of the game. So moving on to the other side of bugs and broken things, let's take a look at the performance. Another reason why the game lost such a significant player base is the fact that you basically need a really good PC or modern CPU to actually run this game. The graphics are not anything special in H1Z1, sure the game looks nice and has a really unique classic look to it, but if you haven't got a good PC, it's not likely you'll even be able to run this game well. Personally, from experience, H1Z1 is still one of my favourite games, although I don't really play it as much as I did, but I did remember that I upgraded my PC not only to make videos, since that was the main reason, but to actually make this game run better, because at one point back in the day, or the so-called glory days of Preseason 3, I was running this game on a toaster computer, literally on 20 FPS, so let's just say back then I wasn't really getting the game's highest rank. Now sure, I can imagine having a huge scale map like a Battle Royale can put some stress on the system, but the actual engine itself is still poorly optimized to this day. The game runs on the dated Forge-like engine by Daybreak, and it primarily utilizes CPU performance rather than using GPU power like a lot of more modernized games use. Because of this, H1Z1 is riddled with heavy FPS problems, even for users like me with decent or modern PCs. Micro stutters and frame issues are not the end of our problems. The fact that you'll get suddenly plagued with micro stutters or half the map or floor won't load for no given reason is as bad as it gets. Most of the time meaning you have to restart the game to actually fix these issues. It seems trivial, but it's probably one of the biggest downsides of the game. Performance is key and a good engine solves a lot of issues, unfortunately something H1Z1 doesn't have. Removing buildings and small map points of interest, as well as changing in-game particle effects, are literally the only thing they've been able to do to improve FPS, rather than Daybreak actually working on the engine. Now let's move on to the next reason why H1Z1 has been in decline for the past year or so. Now H1Z1 didn't go into such regression so easily or quickly. No, in fact, the community of this game is one of the strongest I've seen. People love the game and so many people want to keep it alive or to continue to fuel its success. Although, I can't yet have an opinion on what is to come for the game with a new development direction right now. Many months ago, the developers didn't really seem to take on anything on board from the community. And the truth hurts, believe me, but I've got more than 1,000 hours in this game and still give it a chance this day, but before it all began, changes that would seal the game's fate began before Preseason 3, where H1Z1, originally a zombie survival game, saw huge success in its side mode, a Battle Royale. It decided to bank off this idea and split the game modes into separate games, the zombie survival game being called H1Z1 Just Survive, and the Battle Royale being called H1Z1 King of the Kill. The focus would be on BR, and these changes on the surface level were almost undoubtedly for profit. The zombie survival mode would be neglected and divide the player base in numbers, causing worse stats for the game. Although this isn't where things got worse, but it did cause a big divide to begin all problems. It was going in a strange direction towards the end of Preseason 3, things took a drastic change. With the announcement sometime after of PUBG, the H1Z1 development team decided that for some reason, they would push a huge update to the game that would make their game like Playerunknowns by bringing a full overhaul to the animations, changing the weapon recoil completely, changing movement and speed modifiers, and so much more. This was called a combat update, and did the majority of the community like it? No, they did not. In fact, it did take some time, a few people welcomed it. I won't lie, because when it was on the test server for the first time, I tried the combat update and actually enjoyed it. It seemed easier, it offered a solution, however, it changed the core fundamentals and mechanics of how H1Z1 was, and this once unique game that had a few bugs but was still loved by the community had turned into something it wasn't. The new anti-spraying made the game less casual and less noob friendly, and too serious, which lost a whole chunk of players, and those serious players who had many hours in practicing the game and its original recoil system had quit the game some weeks or months after this patch itself, as they were angered on how they wasted so much time for everything to change. This would be the start of the changes that would see no end, and the rebranding and changing of H1Z1 multiple times to come. The colours and vibrancy changed, and the whole feel changed, making enemies even harder to see for new players and bringing a whole different look and feel to the new game. Although H1Z1 did receive this big update and a few others, even with the player numbers in heavy decline, For some reason they didn't seem to let it factor into their decision making. They didn't revert the changes or go back to the old rendition of the game, they just let it be and continued to pursue further updates that made the community's trust in the developers waver. There would be less content updates and patches from this point on, with months in between updates, and with the arrival of PUBG, a good chunk of the player base decided to migrate because the game had become a poor copycat in some players' eyes, and a better choice was to play the real thing itself. Many streamers such as Ninja and DrDisrespect and Summit would migrate to PUBG, leaving H1Z1 with less promotional figureheads to keep it on top. Towards the end half of 2017, China put a streaming ban on H1Z1, putting an end to the beloved Chinese streamers like EmoQQ and the Red Army, a movement of tens of Chinese players all clad in red clothes. Basically a full set of teamers. Sure, it broke the rules, but it was so funny to watch and see. This was one of the many unique things this game had, and people even breached the Red Army themselves and tried to disguise as one of them, blending in and joining on the fun. The Red Army was basically just a team of tens of players all dressed in red, and anyone who wasn't dressed like them would be a target. It was just basically a huge teaming situation, and sure, it was against the rules, but it was fun. With China's ban, many Chinese streamers had to stop streaming the game, and China was the main player base, causing a stop to an influx of players. Daybreak would focus more on releasing so-called pretty skins. Sure, they were visually appealing, but it outraged a lot of the community with the belief that H1Z1 now was only a money grab and the developers had no wishes to repair the game so many loved, but to use it to further generate profit through microtransactions instead of bring quality updates to the community. So much so that the many excuses on why the game couldn't be reverted was due to the company's alleged carelessness of not keeping a backup of the original game builds at hand. Sometime later, the game would be released out of early access after 2 years or more, but it would be a shadow of its former self, still full of bugs, and it was now free to play and bundled with some crazy Mario Kart mode called Auto Royale, which seemed completely out of touch with the game's theme, but it was still fun for a while. These updates, like small modes and Auto Royales, were mostly pointless and didn't provide any incentive for the majority of the community to come back. Instead of reverting or fixing core mechanics, for many months they pushed empty updates as deemed by the community. It did actually bring a small boom to the game because people came for fun, a lot of casual players, and some streamers kind of tried the game for a while, but it was short-lived. After PUBG dominated and took the spotlight, the last nail in H1Z1's coffin was the release of Fortnite Battle Royale. Fortnite saw numbers unlike any other game. It was one of those popular games of a generation like Minecraft that only comes maybe once every 10 years. It took people away even from PUBG, which had initially defeated H1Z1, but you know about that story. Everyone and their girlfriends' mothers have played Fortnite. But that doesn't end H1Z1 and its story, because in 3 days away from today, H1Z1 plans to hit back hard with a new Season 3 update, attempting to mirror and bring back the pre-Season 3 era of the game that made it popular. We can only sit and hope and wait to see what happens. I will release a new video though tomorrow on if the H1Z1 Season 3 will revive the game. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with these points or disagree, and also let me know if I've missed anything about the decline of the game. Now make sure to smash the like button if you agree with the video, or if you disagree and think H1Z1 either made no mistakes or that it'll come back again. Make sure to like the video anyway, because one like equals one prayer for H1Z1 on March the 6th on update day. Remember, you're not hurting Daybreak, you're only hurting yourself by clicking the dislike button, because I'm giving back to everyone who watched till the end by doing a giveaway, and if you want to enter, smash a like on the video and click on the link in the description or the comments below. Each month I do give away a game, and this month is no different. So thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.
You better back up.